All right, folks. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bucks America Podcast. I am your host, Jeff. I have a returning guest, Dakota Miller. Now, for those who tuned in for the last YouTube episode that him and I sat down, we had some really weird audio issues, and I felt bad for the whole situation. But I still released the podcast. But this time, I wanted to bring him back on after his triumphant turkey season. I mean, this guy jumped around. He was involved with over a dozen different turkey encounters. He helped a lot of his friends and his girlfriend get a bird. He, on top of himself, he managed to punch 4 tags himself. And I really want to know what he did and everything that's gone through. And we were talking prior to hitting record about what he did to prepare for these hunts, and I want to set him up to really break down everything, because having over a dozen turkey encounters is still a respectable feat, and it's not an easy thing to do. And almost like, Dakota, before I continue on, what was your success rate for all of your trips? Was it like 90%, 100% success rate?
Yeah, I think every single hunt I went on, I was successful except for my very first one. So yeah, I had some pretty good luck this year for sure.
So you had pretty much a perfect record for 2023.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. I mean, that's still a really thing to admire, that somebody able to do it. But that's where I want to find out what you did to prepare yourself for it. And granted, it's a combination of luck and preparedness equals success. And I want you to talk about preparedness to equal the luck aspect to create the success. So why don't you take it off and start from the very beginning of your season?
Okay. Well, it was I think it was mid March. Me and my younger brother Drake, we started our season down in actually Florida, down there and down near the Everglades. And
okay,
we got down there later in the season than we wanted to. And I have a friend of mine down there. She has an outfitting business, and she invited us down there to hunt down there. And we didn't have any luck, but we did. We seen birds. I think it was just late in the season where they just weren't really wanting to come into the decoys or calling much. So what we're thinking next year, we'd like to try to get down there maybe first or second week of season when they're more active, because they start their mating season earlier down there than most states. So we were down there a little late, and I think that kind of made a difference. And I could have harvested one on I think it was the second or third morning. Me and my little brother were in a ground blind, and we heard one gobbling behind us way off. And then all of a sudden he popped up in front of me. I didn't even see him, right in front of us, in front of the decoy, in front of the blind at the decoy.
Okay.
And then by the time we got the camera on everything, I was just trying to film it all. He kind of knew something was up and kind of skirted off. But other than that, no birds wanted to really come to any decoys or much calling at all. They just kind of feed with the hens they were with, and that was about it the whole trip. So one thing we learned is maybe try to go a little early in the season next year, and when they're a little more active, because they did kill a lot the 2 and 3 weeks prior to that.
Okay, so that was just kind of. So what would you say that was a couple of hiccups you had prior to that day starting? Or what was some of the things that stuck out in your mind that didn't go the way you thought it would? Maybe elaborate more on a few aspects.
I'd say there for down there, for a couple of things, I think we learned a lot. Not to call a little less down there. It just seemed like those birds down there just didn't really like much calling. So I think that's another thing we learned, is not to call too much. So that was kind of something I think we messed up on, just called at them too much, and they knew something just wasn't right, because they just didn't talk much down there, as we learned throughout the week. And even not using a Jake decoy down there, just maybe sticking a hen out there and trying that, I think was something we kind of talked about maybe to try differently.
Okay, that's a good way to change and stuff. Now, the land you were on, you'd mentioned it as an outfitter. Is this public land that you were hunting on?
The piece we were on was private, but it butted right up to a piece of public ground, which there was a lot of hunters in there, and a couple of them I seen had success as well. But it was right up against public ground, it was like an old cattle ranch we were on.
Okay, so I wonder, with being so close to that, since there were so much presence out there, maybe that could have also contributed to the birds almost not really being too talkative because while you were out there 3 weeks prior to the start of the season.
Yeah, that was another thing also. Yeah, we were kind of thinking with as many hunters we've seen, and we heard quite a few shots around us basically every single day. We were kind of thinking that too. They're just a little nervous on edge, especially towards the end of the season like that.
For sure. That makes sense, though. That does add an element of strategy and how you want to do it. So maybe getting out there week 1 instead of week 3, you probably will give you that tactical advantage.
Yep, exactly. That's what we were kind of thinking too for next year.
And so, what was your what bird were you going after in Florida?
That was the Osceola.
Osceola. Okay. I didn't know if Florida had, like, I know Osceola is the primary bird in Florida. I don't know if they had any other species in Florida or if it's just the Osceola.
Yeah, the easterns are in the north part, and then down in the southern part is the Osceola.
Okay. That makes sense then.
I'm pretty sure there's a river or a highway, maybe both, that kind of split it down the center down there. That they say below that's the Osceola and above that's the eastern. I'm not sure if that's correct, but I've heard that from a few people.
Oh, that probably is the case may be then. So after your time in Florida, where'd you go next?
We were back for a few weeks. Then me and my little brother Drake, again, we went out to Iowa. I think it was the first or second week of April. Yeah, it was the second week of April, actually. I think it was Easter weekend we went out there. And this was an outfitter too, but I met a friend of mine. He works out there, and they actually just started having turkey hunts out there last year. And for Iowa, actually, it's something a little different. Something, if you ever want to hunt Iowa, you actually have to apply for a turkey tag for a non-resident. You actually have to apply. I think January 1st to I think the 30th. You have to actually apply for.
Looks like we ran into a little technical difficulty here, sir. So bear with us here. So Dakota will be back on here in just a moment. Now, while he is getting his audio worked on here, I do want to. Oh, there he is.
Sorry about that. Hi.
It's all right, man. It's technology. You never know when things can go weird for you.
Yeah, that was my bad. So I was moving the camera a little bit and it went off of it. I'm sorry.
No big deal. At least the audio is fine, and it was just a minor hiccup here. So now you're talking about Iowa, and you were explaining to us about the application process prior to getting your tag to hunt in Iowa.
Yep. And yeah, so you have to do that if you're a non-resident prior to that to get your tag. And it's usually pretty easy to get one there, but now I guess more hunters are doing it. So me and my little brother were the only ones that actually, for that outfitter, that got our tag that year. So we went out there opening week of their season. And so we basically had the farms to ourselves. And I went there the year before, so I knew a little bit about the property. And there's no guy or nothing. We just basically went out there and listened to what the owner and the friend of mine out there that helps him told me kind of where the birds were. But we went out there and kind of was trying to almost see where they were roosting the night before we got there. And then the next morning we went back and got in a blind, and it was pretty incredible. We had, I think, 17 different longbeards gobbling, and I think we ended up seeing, I think, about 12 of them. And we were in, I mean, these fields are huge out there, and I think we ended up seeing about 12 to 14 tom turkeys that morning. It was absolutely incredible. And a bunch of hens with him. And then me and my little brother, we tried to double on some, and we kind of miscommunicated. He shot before me, but he got one. And then the other one just flew away. But I mean, there were still birds all over in the fields that were far off that we worked all morning, had no luck. And then it was just, the population out there was really just something this year. I mean, every morning, every property we were on, just seeing multiple long beards and hens with them. And then on the third day, we were able to I got myself one there on a different farm about a mile away from where my little brother got his.
Oh, that's exciting. So when you were in Iowa, how long did you and your brother plan on initially being in Iowa?
We planned on hunting for 4 days 4 days, 2 days of travel out there. So yeah, we plan on hunting 4 days.
Okay. All right then. Yeah, because you do have the travel to get back to home and such. So that's pretty interesting then. So that's nice that you took advantage of the intel you had. Now, during this set, did you set up any decoys or how did you begin your morning of the Iowa turkey hunt?
Yes, the first morning we had a half strut Jake, we had a lay down hen, and then just a standing up hen, and that was what we had the first morning. And really the birds there, there was so many of them, so many hens grouped up every day that I mean they flew down the field with us within 100 yards, but it took probably about an hour for them to eventually work over to us as a group. They came over. They didn't all just the toms didn't break off and come into the decoys because they already had so many hens with them. They eventually just kind of worked across as a group and then eventually fed into the decoys, and the toms kind of started one to come into the Jake they seen there at the decoys. But that was something we learned there too, is their early season before they're starting to split off hens a little bit. You almost kind of just got to sit there and watch them every day and learn where they kind of feed in the fields, and almost set up there where hopefully they're going to walk by you with a hen or something or a decoy out there to hopefully they walk by and stand around for a second, give you a shot.
Okay. Very cool. Now, what weapon of choice? Now, I'm assuming since you're traveling, now when you apply for a tag in Iowa, do you have to choose which weapon you're going to use when you're out there, or what tool you're going to use while you're out there?
I'm pretty sure you can use either a shotgun or bow, no matter what the tag is. I'm pretty sure. I'm not for certain on that, but I'm pretty sure you can.
Okay. I just wanted to give the listeners something to prepare for if they're doing an out-of-state Iowa hunt. Is that the same thing with Florida? I mean, I know we're already past it, but was that an either tool option, or did you have to specifically sign with a shotgun or a bow?
I think that was the same thing too. I think you can use it for both on that, and that you don't have to apply for that tag. You can buy that just over the counter somewhere for Florida.
Really? They
Yeah,
have that big of a population where you can go OTC.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty badass.
Yeah, that was pretty neat to know, because I thought the same thing. I thought I was gonna have to try to draw that, and then the year before I went, I learned you didn't have to. And I didn't know there was that many turkeys down there, but yeah, that was something neat.
Man, I've heard of people going down there going after Osceola, but never was explained like what the process is for it. So after Iowa, then where'd you go after that?
Um, we got home. And I think my little brother, he went. I think he went to West Virginia, and he got one the first morning he was there. I wasn't with him there. And then actually the next day he went to Kentucky. He killed one there. And then the day after that, he went to Maryland and shot one there 3 mornings in a row. I wasn't with him, but he had the camera with him, and he went with a buddy to those, and he had 3 in 3 mornings. It's pretty neat. But
Wow, 3 for 3. So so is Maryland, is that an OTC situation too, or do you have to apply for that?
yeah, that was the same thing. Yep, you could get it anytime.
Really? So that's pretty cool that you can get 3 tags in one trip, and the fact that he tagged out every single morning is pretty BA.
Yeah, it was something pretty special. I was going to go down to Kentucky with him when he went, but we had some things come up at home with some work and stuff, so I couldn't go. And he ended up going with a buddy of his. And then I didn't go there next, but I went to Tennessee actually after Iowa, after he went to those 3 states. And I went down there to a friend of mine. He invited me down there, and we the first morning we were there, I filmed him and the person that he's good friends with. They hunt on his farm. I filmed him and his buddy both double up on 2 toms the first morning, and then later that afternoon he got me on another one, and we all killed in the same day as well.
That's pretty neat though to have all your friends be able to fill your tags in one day. It's not always the easiest thing to talk about. So, can you since you guys had that such a memorable day, can you break down the morning and the afternoon hunt and like what you did and how you prepared for it? What did you guys do? Your e-scouting, or what was the steps that allowed you to connect with all 3 birds that day?
Yep. The two that came in the first morning, I didn't get down there till late the night before, but my friend Hunter, he went there to that farm and he actually roosted those birds. He seen them in the field right before dark, but didn't see where they flew up exactly. But he knew they're in the area, and we went in there that morning, sat probably about, we thought we were about 50 yards from where they're roosting, but when we got in there, it's probably about 150, 200 yards actually, and they're behind us. But they ended up actually flying across the cut. There was a big ditch behind us, ravine, and they were on the other side. And they came down and they came across and ended up just working down this cattle pasture right to us. And we had a full strut Jake out there, and then there was, I'm pretty sure, a lay down hen and a standing hen there. And they had about 3 or 4 hens with them, and the hens fed in first, and then once the toms got over the hill and started seeing those that Jake, then the first one, he came in strutting and gobbling, and eventually he came in and started messing around with the decoys, and the second one kind of held back, and then all of a sudden he come running in there, and we actually filmed them for probably 5 minutes just beating up on the decoys, and heck of a time. And actually the hen came in there too and was using her wing and smacking the hen decoy and was pecking at her head, and then eventually they started walking away, and not long after that they shot him at the same time. But that was a pretty neat hunt, watching them just come in there and really interact with us within probably 15, 20 yards and no idea we were there.
That's one thing you don't see a lot of footage of is a hen going after another decoy, because we've all seen the photography or videos of big toms just destroying those. Then so how was your hunt? How did that compare to their hunt?
It was a lot quicker. We drove around throughout the day, and we were seeing some birds on some of the properties, and we tried sneaking around, calling on, just didn't work out. And then it was probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We seen a couple of toms out in the field on a property he can hunt, and so we actually snuck around and came down a field edge, and there was an old pond there with the dam of the pond had like a extra hill of dirt on with some trees growing on there. We actually snuck up within probably 100 yards, and actually the whole flock of turkeys were underneath a set of trees in the middle of this field, and they're sleeping. They're all sleeping there in the middle of the day. They had their heads tucked under their wings, and they're all sleeping. That was something I've never really seen midday like that, a whole group of them. And we just kind of sat there and watched. It was neat to watch. And eventually they woke up and they started feeding. And then my friend Hunter, I stood on top of the bank with the camera on the tripod and the gun, and he snuck down around the edge of the dirt pile. We're on the dam there, and he had that a fan and like that half strut Jake, and he just kind of stuck it out there and was moving that fan to get their attention. And then the hens walked the other way, and then those 2 toms, they broke off and ended up coming within, I think, 5 yards of me on that dirt mound, and had no idea I was there. And I filmed them as they started noticing something wasn't right, and they started kind of walking away. But by the time I seen him, I finally seen him for about 5 seconds, and then I shot. So it was a lot quicker, but got on film, and it was pretty neat.
So in this setup, then, did you put up a blind, or were you managed to act all like a ninja and hide out in plain sight?
Yeah, we didn't have a blind or nothing. I got up behind like this little briar bush, this little stubby tree, and just kind of laid there behind it. And we managed not to get seen because they were sleeping. And we were within probably, I'd say, 80 yards of them sleeping. We just kind of waited there till they got up, and we didn't move. And then eventually when they got up, he just slipped around the corner, dropped down in front of me there, and showed him that decoy. And then they eventually worked right in front of us.
Oh, that is interesting to see, because I've been in tree stands where I've seen turkeys, but they saw enough movement is like, nope, I'm going a different direction now. It's like, all right, fine, be that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, what's that?
It was a pretty neat hunt because I've never been experienced having someone sit behind that decoy and move it like that and have them come by. I've always just sat back and had a decoys out in front of me. I never had someone sit behind it like that. So it was pretty different, neat to watch.
Yeah, that would be different and neat to watch. Now, I don't know if you've seen these in some of your trade shows, but when I was at the Iowa Deer Classic and the Dell's open season event, there is a vendor there that actually has promotes you taking remote control cars, putting a decoy on them, and actually running them around and having birds fly into them. I was watching Tim Silva talk about, or talking to him about, he actually using one at his Iowa farm, and managed to get one to go across a creek or a ravine or something like that to come out and challenge it. I thought that was pretty neat. But they created this fan where this way it actually opens up and closes it to kind of give that illusion, the optics for them to do it. Have you ever like thought about doing something like that for S&Gs just to see what would happen, especially since you have a camera, you capture a lot of footage?
No, I never thought about that, but that would definitely be something neat to try. And yeah, I'd definitely be interested in it. I actually got like an old decoy. I could probably sit over a remote control truck, or yeah, or even try one of those out, because that'd be something neat to actually drive around and see how they act towards it and see how close we can get them to us.
Yeah, no kidding. Would it be like, I don't know about where you all the places you hunt in the fall, like Wisconsin, you can get a turkey tag for the fall. But just think if like, you're just out there and you want to have some fun, but you know there's turkeys in the area. While you're out there deer hunting, you can just put out the decoy and just kind of roam around and see if you can get something to come down and attack it. Because it's like talk about two birds in one stone right there. Get a bird, fill a bird tag, and then fill a doe tag or a buck tag.
Yeah, that would be something neat to try. I even try it in the fall and even around the deer and see how they act towards it and see how close you can get with it before they think something's up. That'd be definitely something neat to video and cool to see what happens.
Right now, I have a friend of mine out in South Dakota, and he's been turkey hunting here pretty heavily. I'm not sure when their season ends, but every time he goes out and he's out there calling, does show up. Every time he's out there. Do you have any like when you're calling for turkeys? Do you have deer show up in front of you?
Every once in a while, not too often, but every once in a while, and sometimes they look at the decoys and they just don't like it, and then sometimes they'll walk right by and just think it's a normal turkey and not even pay any attention. And then sometimes, like I said, yeah, they get all nervous and don't even get close, and they start stomping and blowing at it, and it's funny to watch how sometimes they're completely different than others.
Yeah, I joked with him too. It's like, watch it. You're gonna go out there during season, and all you're gonna see is turkeys.
Yeah.
That's the best part. Like, I don't know because you hunt primarily in Ohio, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, with the fall turkey season, do you get I don't know about the price tag is for you guys, but for here in Wisconsin, like $27 for a turkey tag. I mean, if you eat the tag, it's not a big deal because it's going back into the DNR. But I have that opportunity to be able to tag it. But do you buy a tag when you're out deer hunting just in case you happen to see a turkey?
When we hunt our private land in Ohio, we actually don't have to have a tag to shoot one, kind of like the deer. So I never have bought a fall tag, but I have tried to shoot one, I think twice, but I always missed it with my bow or something like that. But it's something I really interested in. I really wanted to shoot one in the fall because I've never done that before. But every once in a while we do see them. I've tried to shoot at them, but I always missed or just hit them in the tail fan or something like that, and they always just fly off. But that's something I do want to try to do. And I think Ohio turkey tag for a resident for like for spring for us when we go and not hunt our property. I think it was I think it was 25 to 27 like yours was, you said there, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
that's not bad.
Sorry. Yeah, it's not terrible. And the non-resident, I don't think it's too much more than that. And yeah, you can just buy it if you're non-resident. You don't have to draw or nothing like that for Ohio.
Yeah. With Wisconsin, if you want to get a preference season, you have to put in for spring. You have to put in before, I think it's December 10th. It's like right after Thanksgiving, and you can only hunt for that week. And then after that, after you put in for, if you want week 1 through week 4 is the prime ones, then you can buy bonus tags after that. I had an opportunity to buy bonus tags, but every weekend I have something planned up until after I think it was what was it? I think it was right after Easter is a lot of the seasons opened up into May and stuff like that. But I had something planned every single weekend to go get something done. Like the best weekend to go and hunt was this past weekend, but I wanted to go get my bow work done. It's like I've had this bow forever. I recently got my A3 strings in. I tell you what, they are a game changer. I've never shot a string like this before. Because you know how you have like factory strings or gas or vapor, you're drawing back and you have a little sponginess to it. Well, since these are already pre-cycled and pre-stretched, it's just they're already ready to go. So it actually feels like you're in more control as the draw cycle goes through. Because I was having some issues with my poundage. Like I've actually had the roller guard almost fall off the roller. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's actually holds it on there because I have an expedition and it has some travel with it when you're drawing when you go from it's a 34 axle to axle deluxe or DLX, and as it was below 50 pounds, as I'm drawing it back, I see the roller guard come back. I can see it actually click over the rod, and now I can see why what happened the last time because I cut my servings last fall just shooting in my garage, and now we kind of understand what happened to it. The whole thing is I drew back, I let go, and all that energy just popped it right off. And it's like after seeing the cut in the serving, it's like, well, this bow's done until I pull the trigger on my new strings. Me and the mad scientist Jeremy Fisher from the Toxin app, we put it all together, got it all peeped out, got it all set up. Now, what another key factor of A3 strings is that they work with Bloodline fiber out of Minneapolis. It allows them to. It's a slick fiber material, and it's a anti-wax. So this way you don't have to wax it. It's water resistant. So when you're out in areas that have a lot of moisture, or if you're in a rainstorm, it's going to help you out. And where was I going with this? Oh, I was going to say that it's just after getting it all sighted in, it just feels different. It feels like it's what a product should be before it gets onto your bow. And I tell you what, it is a game changer on the whole process. And there's a lot of people that really enjoy A3 archeries. And oddly enough, they're only I think they're about 50 minutes from where I live. And I sat down with Brent last fall. If you're a guy that holds on to your bow, I would recommend upgrading your strings for it. Just because it's one of those ones that'll last you 2 or 3 years before I have to cycle it out. I have a friend of mine I was telling him about my experience with my bow, but he says like I sell my bow so quickly, he doesn't have the urge to buy new strings for it. Now I have an Elite that I've had since 2016. I've had my expedition now for going on the second year, and it's just one of those things that it's a good product to add to your arsenal. It's a little tricky tying in your peep because sometimes it can slide on you, but if you know what you're doing, you don't have to worry about that aspect of it all. But I tell you what, and it's just I'm really happy to get it all done like this on Wednesday. I'm already, while you and I were talking, before I jumped on the podcast, I was messaging my friends like, hey, I'm going to go shoot Wednesday. Who all can make it? And now they're all responding back to me after lunch or after work, letting me know like, hey, I could be out there, da-da-da. So it's like, I'm excited to go out there and fling some arrows and have 2 bows sighted in. So I have one for hunting, one for 3D. And it's like, I'm pretty excited about this season.
Yeah, that's for sure. That sounds awesome. I hope they sight in for you real good, and I'm anxious to hear how it does for you.
I'm looking forward to it too, because a lot of people say when you get new strings, you have to go through a break-in period, like right around 100 to 150 arrows. Well, with the A3 strings, you don't have that. It's just like it's good to go immediately put them on there, so there's no break-in period. And a lot of people say, now this is from factory strings. I can't comment on any of the other ones out there, but a lot of people say once they switch from the factory strings to an A3 strings, they usually will see on average a 3 to 5 FPS increase, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I've never heard that. That's pretty awesome, man.
Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of people say on there. They have a Facebook group, and that's consistently what a lot of them say when they swap them out. A lot of them want to challenge that statement, and so they'll set up their chronograph. They'll fling a few arrows prior, record it, place a string, fire a few more arrows, and they'll see the increase. I have a buddy of mine, Ben, out there in South Dakota, and he saw a difference in his darting strings when he went from factory darting to the A3 strings. Yeah, it was about like 3 or 4 FPS increase. But hey, you got to take those wins when you got them.
Yeah, that's something. That's pretty neat. I'll have to look into that. That's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, heck yeah, man! And every once in a while he'll do deals too. So it's like you have to just be patient on Facebook. He never tells any of his when he's going to do his specials, but he just increased his store. He put a few new items in there too as well. So if you want to get hats or koozies or shirts, hoodies, he increased that too as well. Is an absolute Brent is an awesome dude, fantastic guy. But getting back to your next hunt, so you triple tagged out in one day. Where'd you go next after that?
I think I went home there for a week or two. Our season wasn't open, or it opened up. I think a week or no, it was that following weekend. I'm sorry, in Ohio after Tennessee there, and we didn't have any luck. I think the first day it was a rainy, nasty day. We had no luck, and then the second day we got on some turkeys, just didn't have any luck, and then I think it was the following weekend. I seen it was going to be raining in Ohio all week, so I decided to go down to Kentucky down there where my brother and his friend shot to that one morning. They said they seen and heard more. And I got down there. I drove down there. I think it was a Friday night after work. I got down there late and I slept in my truck in the back seat. And then I got up the next morning and I heard one or two gobbles, no luck. And I walked around all day just scouting around, just didn't hear much, and I was seeing scratching where they've been scratching on the hillsides, and we're in a real steep country in Kentucky. It's kind of like smaller mountains, kind of like Pennsylvania and stuff like that. But I was getting up on top of these ridges and I was falling around. A lot of times midday you can get up there and they'll be up there just scratching around, feeding, and hanging out. So I walked all the ridges out, didn't see or hear nothing, but there was a sign everywhere, so I knew there was some in there. Then eventually I dropped back down to the bottom where we've always had luck midday also every once in a while, but a lot of times in the morning where my brother shot his, and years prior we've killed in the bottom. And I got set up down there. I was just sitting there on the ground. I had a slate call, and I was just I think I had just a hen out there. And I was just calling every 10 to 15 minutes, just loud yelps, and nothing was gobbling. And I was just sitting there probably an hour and a half, and I was actually looking at my phone, and I happened to look up, and a tom was coming right down the field, probably 100 yards at me, not strutting, never gobbled one time at me, and really caught me off guard. If I would have moved that much more, he would have picked me off because I had no idea he was even there. And I had the camera to my right on the tripod, I self film, so that kind of gave me some cover. And I filmed him come all the way in. I just sat there and didn't move. And then my gun was actually laying on the ground next to me as I sat it down there. So I had to slowly get it up and turn the camera at the same time while he was coming in, just trying to be real still and make sure he wasn't looking at me when I was moving. But it took a while to get it up there. By the time we got to the decoys, he messed around for a second, and then I didn't wait too long, and I took him right there. But I was pretty excited and pretty happy because it was my first day down there, really, and I was kind of getting discouraged. I didn't really hear nothing all day or see nothing, and out of nowhere, there he is. So that's why it made me think, and something I learned is you just never know what's going to happen when you're hunting. So just always be ready, because you just never know when something's just going to pop out there, even when you don't hear or see nothing while you're turkey hunting.
For sure. So now, with your trip down there in Kentucky, was this private or public?
This was a private ground that my dad and grandpa bought years ago. And then we also got a friend that butts up to us. He's an old farmer, and he lets us hunt that ground also as well. So it's kind of been somewhere we've just turkey hunted for quite a few years down there. We haven't really deer hunted it much, but it's pretty good turkey hunting.
Sure. Now, you'd mentioned you'd seen sign while you're walking the ridges all the way. So other than seeing their footprints, what else should a woodsman look for when they're out hunting turkey?
When you see some leaves and you see it looks like you've been all scratched or almost ruffled up, if you take a rake or something like that and you just see it kind of scattered out, that's usually a turkey will be walking by and they'll pick that up and they're trying to get bugs and grubs and stuff like that, is what that usually is. And that was something I seen a lot of on those hillsides, just covered. And sometimes it might be just one or two little spots. Then sometimes it might be just a whole area, or it just looks like the wind just spun it all around, and you can see dirt here and there's piles of leaves here. It's pretty neat to see. But that's something you can look for when you're scouting, is scratching on the ground and leaves usually.
Okay, that's a good way to do it. Next season, when you're out hunting in 2024, what you could do is, if you're in a situation where you don't have to worry about, if you're not really focused, you have a moment where you can actually take your camera out and we're filming, what you could do is just simply record like a 8 to 15-second clip of the area. Then what you can do is like afterwards, since we don't give away your position, do a voiceover with that, and he can explain to you what caught your eye and why you saw it. So this way you give folks the visualization of it, because there can be folks all over the country that may have seen this turkey sign, but actually didn't recognize what it actually is. Because a lot of us, like myself, the unsuccessful turkey hunters, they won't know what they're looking for, because I usually go based off of when I see feathers or I'll see tracks, but I don't really know what I'm looking for when it comes down to disturbed debris, to making sure that I'm like actually like, okay, should stay here and sit down and figure out someplace comfortable to call.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be a great idea. Yeah, because when I started out hunting, I had no clue it was there. And yeah, really, if you don't know or never think of it, yeah, I mean, you wouldn't know what it was. And my dad taught me that, what it was when I was younger after I asked him. But yeah, it's something, if you don't know, yeah, you wouldn't know what it was or know it's turkey sign. But yeah, I'll definitely do that for sure.
There you go. Now, so you wrapped up in Kentucky. You said you guys, one of the posts is you connected your girlfriend with a turkey too. Tell us about that story. And was that her first bird?
Yeah, that was the very first turkey. And yeah, it was last not this past weekend, the weekend before, second to last weekend for our area here in Ohio. And we went down to our property down in southern Ohio, and it was the first time hunting turkeys there at all this year. The numbers just haven't been very good down there the last couple of years, but we decided to go down there and give it a try. And we went down there the night before, and we were doing an evening hunt for them. That's a tip I could talk about is, yeah, I have a lot of luck midday or evening setting up for turkeys. You don't hear much gobbling or if any, kind of like Kentucky, but if you sit there sometimes long enough and you just call, like I said, every 10 to 15 minutes and you just stay still, or you're in a blind, which is a lot better, because it kind of gets tiring after sitting there quite a few hours and not moving. You just never know when they're going to show up in the evening for a turkey. But I've killed a lot just sitting there in the evenings, just calling every 10 to 15 minutes. And sometimes they'll just come out of nowhere, out of the woods, right into the field or wherever you're set up, and they just won't gobble, just come in silent to a decoy. I mean, if you don't have a decoy, you don't have to have one, but they'll come into the area looking for that hen calling. But that's one thing I've had a lot of success with. But back to her hunt, we got there in the evening. We went out for a couple hours. We did that, but we didn't have any luck that time. But we didn't get down there until probably an hour and a half before dark, which was a little later than I wanted to be. So after that, something I like to do, I'll go around right at dark or right after dark, and I'll go around and I'll take an owl call like a hooter, and I'll owl hoot, and they'll sometimes gobble that off the tree to them when they fly up to roost at night. So I went around and I did that all over the farm, didn't hear any turkeys. I was like, man, maybe there isn't any down here. So we went back to for the next morning, we decided to go back to a blind that she actually she missed a Jake at the year prior. We had an opportunity and she missed. It was her first turkey she shot at, but she missed, and it happens to everybody. I missed too a couple of times this year, but we went back there and we were sitting there and it was getting daylight, and I didn't hear nothing yet, and I hadn't called yet. And I was like, I'll do a couple of just soft yelps. That's a hen just talking a little bit. And I did that, nothing. I waited about 2 more minutes, did a little bit louder, and gobble right probably 50 yards above us. We just happened to sit in that blind. And I went back there the night before and did the owl hoot and didn't hear nothing, didn't see any turkeys back there, any sign. But they were there. They roosted right above our blind. And we were sitting there, and a hen flew down right into our decoy set, and then another one came off the hillside over here, and there was 2 right in front of us. And I told her, I said, this is good, because if the hens are here and they're with our decoys and that's their hens, they're going to come in here too. And it kind of sounded like a Jake gobble when I heard it. And then 3 Jakes flew in. They came in, they're getting to the decoys, and we were getting ready to take the first one. And then the next 2 came behind her and behind that Jake, and they were just too close to shoot because it would have hit probably the other one. So I just told her to wait. And then all of a sudden I seen something out of the corner of my eye, and a big Tom Longbeard just dropped down the ground from the tree right in the field with us. And I said, all right, let's wait. And then he just, once they seen him hit the ground, those little Jakes, they kind of just stood there, and he came over half strutted up and pushed those little jakes away from our decoys, and he was with the hens and pushing it was neat to watch, and it was neat for her to watch too, because it was her first time seeing that. And they came in there and they're interacting, they're talking all the different turkeys, and they're playing with each other. And then eventually they split up enough, and the tom was right there, and she made a perfect shot this time. He just dropped right there in his tracks.
Oh, that's fantastic. Do you by chance have a turkey call with you?
If I have one in here, let me see. I got one in here. I don't have a slate call with me, which that's what I use a lot of. I do have a box call here.
Okay, so do you think you can mimic or mirror the calls you made that morning with your girlfriend on the box call?
Yeah, I'll give it a try here. I just did some yelps. That's all I did, but I just did that twice and started out quiet the first time. I didn't want to do it too loud just in case they were close. And then I did a little bit louder the next time, and that's all I did that time, and that's all I had to do, and it came right in.
Nice. So, what was her reaction to everything? I mean, I'm sure that she was jumping for joy.
Yeah, she was real excited, and I mean, I could hear her just breathing real hard, and she was shaking the whole time, and they're out there. And then, especially when that tom came in there, she really got excited. And after she got it, she was pretty darn excited. And I had the camera there, and I filmed it all, so I got to get her reaction. Which that's one reason I really do like just taking the camera, not just for the show and any stuff like that, but just to see and be able to show family, friends, and everything, just that excitement, because you just can't get that from anything else.
That's very true. Capturing those candid moments are extremely special, and especially for that moment right there, it's going to be ingrained in her mind for the rest of her life. Now, with her shooting and stuff like that, what was her choice of ammunition? Because I know some people don't like the TSS ammunition, but what was her choice of ammunition for that trip?
I'm pretty sure it was. Can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was heavy shot. I don't think it was TSS. I think it was just heavy shot. I think it had 5, 6, and 7 shot in it, and it was a mixture. And that's why I'm pretty sure that's what we shot it with. I can't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
I gotcha. Yeah, not just because not everybody likes that strong kick of the
Yeah.
TSS. So it's like there's always got to be other alternatives for that particular round. So at least she found something that now I take it she was practicing with this round before that morning.
Yep. I had one of those. I had a chair set up, and I always had the bog, that death grip, because it just kind of helps hold it. And that's what she shot off of. Just a little more steadier, a little easier to hold, just till I get more used to it. But yeah, we shot on that, and we practiced at 20, 30, and then out to 40 yards. And we did a lot of practicing with that, and made sure she was all good and was familiar with everything and the gun and everything. And yeah.
That's perfect then. So then after your guys' shoot there in Ohio, that puts us up to what, 6 birds, 7 birds? Where'd you go after? Did you continue hunting in Ohio, or did you go on to another state after you connected or helped your girlfriend connect with a turkey?
No, I ended up staying in Ohio, and then I think before she got hers, I went out with a good friend of mine. He took his daughter out. I think it was the weekend before that, actually. That's when I killed mine on a Saturday in Ohio, and then the next day I went out and I filmed a good friend of mine, his daughter. I think she's 12 or 13, and she shot a few turkeys, but I got to go out there and film her shoot a turkey. That was pretty neat. We seen a lot of turkeys that day too, and it was just a special moment because it was her and her dad, and I sat outside the blind and got to film them and that interaction and everything. I enjoy just being there with someone else and watching them shoot and filming them and getting all that more than I even like shooting it myself.
Understandable. That's pretty impressive, man. That is something that is the something what people would strive for, to be able to capture those moments, to be part of it. And be able to coordinate with that with you is just is a reward in itself. I'm glad you got to experience some of these triumphant moments.
Yeah, it is pretty special, and it definitely is. Yeah, my favorite part of all the hunts is being with other people when they do it, and just seeing how happy they get for sure.
Definitely. So after the father daughter duo, any where'd you go after that, or was that pretty much the end of your season?
I ended up actually the dad of the daughter that shot that. We went back to that same property a few different mornings throughout the season there. Whenever we both were free for a couple hours before work, and there was one long beer in there. We were just trying to get. He'd always have hens with him. He never wanted to leave them. And then, so eventually on I think the third or fourth time, we put a ground. That's another neat thing about turkeys is, deer, it's hard to do this, but for turkeys, you can take a ground blind or any blind and pop it up right in the middle of a field, and they'll come right out there and not be scared. But like a deer, if you do that, I mean, it's going to take a couple of weeks. They're not just going to walk right in front of it the next day. But there was a trail this turkey kept coming out on every morning after he was roosting there. So we went and sat this pop-up line there and just put a hen out there because we had the hen and Jake the other 2 or 3 days, and he just didn't like it either. So we just put the hen out there. We put the blind around the field, right on the edge of that trail where he comes out. And then he was in the same spot this fourth morning, and we were calling, and he was coming down that trail. We didn't hear any hens this morning. So we're like, oh, this is going to be good. He's going to come out here. And then just like, I mean, it never goes as planned. And he was right there inside the woods. We just couldn't see him, probably 60 yards. But it was so thick we couldn't see him. Then all of a sudden he went quiet. And then we heard him gobble. He was actually in the field we were in, but we were in that blind. We couldn't see him. And we opened the side window, and he was down in the field below us, probably 50 yards. He still didn't like the decoys. He stood there, wasn't afraid, but just kept gobbling. So we actually had to turn around the blind. I took the camera off the tripod. I pushed down the little pop-up blind window and got underneath that and into the screen. And then he went out the other side and put his gun out the back. It was about a 50-yard shot, and I got to film him shoot that bird there in the same field that his daughter killed in. So that was pretty neat too.
He shot it at 50 yards and managed to kill it.
Yeah, I was surprised. Some of these guns are just. I mean, I'm hearing people shoot out to 80, but yeah, and actually it was he just bought the gun brand new, and he hadn't got a time to shoot it because he got, I think, the night before, and it was dark, and he took it out, and I was a little nervous about that far and without shooting it. But he said that someone had the same exact gun that he knew, the same choke and same bullet, and he said he was shooting him out to 70, and yeah, he shot at 50, and it just dropped it. I couldn't believe it.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm waiting for you to tag me in that film because just the fact that somebody shot somebody 50 yards with a shotgun, it's like that's impressive. Because now if you did that with the bow, it's like, man, we're not worthy. But man, still with the 50-yard shotgun blast, that's insane. So what gun did he have, and what was the barrel length? Do you recall?
It was the new Mossberg. It was an automatic. You didn't have to pump. It was I think it was a new one this year, whatever the new Mossberg is. And I think he was shooting. It was the TSS, something TS. It was TSS of something. I think it was Federal TSS. And the length, it wasn't crazy long. It was kind of in between a long barrel and the shorter barrels, like right in between there. I don't know exactly the length on it, but it was like that. It wasn't crazy long, but it was just a nice size gun. And I don't know what kind of choke he had in the end of it. I don't know what it was, but I know that was the gun and that was the bullet he was shooting.
Okay, that's pretty impressive, though. I admire that. That's just like to take a shot like that. Now, was it iron sight or did he put a red dot on there?
It was just a little green iron sight on the tip of it.
Yeah, so that's pretty impressive, though. At least he already had the understanding of what that barrel and that choke can do with that combination of the ammunition. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. I mean, I was blown away after it happened for sure.
What's the longest shot you ever taken on a bird?
I've taken one I remember I snuck up on one in Iowa 2 years ago at that same property. And I think I shot him it was a 65, but we snuck up within 300 yards of him behind like an old tail fan. We got within 65, and I was only comfortable at the 50, but the guy I was with, he said, you could probably take that shot, but it completely missed. It hit the dirt way in front of him, and he walked away fine. But that was the farthest I ever shot. But the farthest I ever shot and killed, I think, was about 40, 45. And that was with my, that was actually the first gobbler I got with an old Rossi single shot 20 gauge, no choke or nothing. And it was my first time. I was little and I didn't know how far he was. And I just shot. But I mean, it did the job and it got him. It must have just, I think, 1 or 2 BBs hit him just right. But that was my first gobbler, and that was my little Rossi single shot, but it did the job just fine.
Phenomenal, man. So after the 55-yard or 65-yard shot, what you do? Do you have any more hunts after that?
This year, or are we talking
No,
about?
no. After that encounter with the gentleman, with his new Mossberg.
I hunted in, then my girlfriend was the following weekend. And then this past weekend, I took my older brother out. We went back down there to that, the same farm that my girlfriend killed on. And it was another one of those deals. We got down there, I think Saturday evening, we went out in the same blind. When we drove up in the field to go set our stuff up, we actually seen some jakes and a one tom with them. So we got our stuff set up for the evening and we called for a while and they ended up not coming in. And then it was about a half hour before dark. We got down, we were driving actually to the other end of the farm and we seen the same turkeys probably almost a half a mile on the other side of the farm. They eventually made their way across the deep ravine around the pond and up on the other side of the property. So we thought they were going to roost there. We didn't see exactly where they roosted, but we got up the next morning, which was this past Sunday. And, we went over there and we drove the side by side to where we last seen him and we parked. It was still before daylight and it was getting daylight and didn't hear nothing. Then we started hearing gobbles back where we seen him earlier the afternoon before. They somehow within that last half hour, they must have went back across that ravine. I mean, it's a long ways, but they got back to that spot right by their rooster, right below that blind that we sat in the evening prior. So we drove around the farm. It was getting daylight, but it was real foggy that morning. So we parked us side by side in the woods. We run across this field probably about 200 yards. But it was daylight, but there was enough fog that they were in the woods and they didn't see us somehow. And we got in there and they eventually came out in the field. It was 3 jakes and a tom, and they had no hens. There's no hens around. So they were coming. They're probably at 300 yards. And they were coming. They got within 150, and the tom kind of held up and the jakes all came in there and they started messing around with the decoys, but that tom just stood out there and gobbled, but he never came in. And I thought for sure once those jakes came in that he would definitely come in there because he wouldn't be afraid, but
yeah,
he must have been nervous about something with the decoys or just scared of that jake because eventually the jakes, they worked off, went back to him. They stood out there in the field, probably 150 yards, just gobbling for probably about an hour and a half. We watched and eventually they went off in the woods and we ended up not getting him a bird this year because our high of the season ended yesterday for the south zone, but there's a north zone with, I think, 4 or 5 counties that you can hunt this weekend and next weekend too. But our part of Ohio ended, so we didn't get him a bird. But that was basically his first time hunting this year. He just was busy with stuff, but we still had an exciting morning, so it was still fun.
That is exciting. So now, are you done for the season then? After yesterday?
Yeah, I think so. I thought we thought maybe going to some close states. I know my little brother might go to New York this weekend, and then a friend of mine possibly talked about me and him going to Pennsylvania. But maybe possibly going there maybe this weekend for maybe Saturday. But other than that, I think probably done and just going to start working on getting stuff ready for deer season now. So yeah,
sure, which is understandable. No, well, hopefully, I'm sure you're gonna tag me when you go to when you decide to make a decision to go further out east. So, yeah, because Minnesota they end this weekend, and I think you could hunt all the way out to the 31st of May in Minnesota. I think same thing with Wisconsin as well. So, I'm hoping when you're on your travels, when you're over in this neck of the woods here, just shoot up to Wisconsin or something like that, because I back up to public land about 2,600 acres worth. So I know there's birds out there. I've heard them out there. I've seen signs out there. I never got in touch because the brush is pretty thick and it's bluff country, man. It is no joke. It's not for the faint heart. But you're used to hunting in the Appalachians, so it's not going to be that surprising for you. Probably be a little bit easier.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to next year. I'm planning on doing more out west hunting. So I'm for sure gonna be out that way. So we'll definitely meet up and we'll have to do a hunt together for sure.
Oh man, that'd be fantastic. The only thing is, if Wisconsin is going to be on your plan, we have to the registration for like seasons 1 through 4. You have to be in by December 10th. But I'll
Okay.
remind you when we get closer to that date, so this way then you're aware of it, just to make sure that like it's going to fit in your schedule. Because I'm sure next year is going to be just as busy. Have you started plotting or planning your trip for out west next year?
No, not yet. But that's something I was planning on doing. And actually, to go back in the season a little bit, um, it was 2 weeks ago. My little brother that went with me to Iowa, him and his two buddies, they actually went out to Wyoming there. They booked a hunt at that Harrisburg show. They booked a turkey hunt out there, and they went out there and they all three killed Merriam's. I think it was 2 weekends ago, and they filmed two of the kills, but they are some very pretty birds and pretty neat country out there.
Yeah, I have a buddy of mine that's done it in the last 2 years, I think, or last 3 years. He's been out there, shot a Merriam every time. I wanted to go this year to go out to Nebraska and go out hunting towards Crawfordsville, way out there on the west side of the state, because they had a season dedicated for strictly archery season for folks, and that's all I pretty much do. And well, we started planning, and well, Martin Archery Fest kind of trumped turkey season, so we're going to Martin Archery Fest here in about a month. So hopefully that'll be on my bucket list to do. But I know this season, at the end of the season, come next year, they're going to be putting a cap on the amount of non-resident tags that Nebraska will allow.
Okay.
So they're gonna make it a little more difficult for a guy to get it. Otherwise, before it was just over the counter, and you can get up to 3 tags for your season. They're like $152 after taxes and stuff.
Really? That's pretty. I'd definitely be interested. Yeah, I hunted out there 2 years ago in an outfitter, but yeah, I definitely want to go out west like that. And yeah, hit some more states out there and out by you for sure. Definitely next year.
So, is next year going to be the year you're going to focus on doing the Grand Slam, or is that still ways out yet before you can be able to put all the moving pieces together to hit that Grand Slam?
Yeah, I definitely. I think next year I like to do it. I have actually every bird except for that Florida Osceola to get the average or to get the four slam. I got a Rio years ago in Texas, and I got the Merriams there. But yeah, I think next year I definitely want to try. I tried last year, just didn't work out. But I definitely like to try for sure this coming year and try to do it all in 1 year and film the whole thing.
I know that is definitely a challenge. I know Pat Newcomb from Newcomb Blinds. He is on the. I think he's got one more bird left to get the slam, but I'm rooting for him. Have you ever seen his blind that he created?
Yes, I seen it briefly at a show, and I want to get one because they're definitely I would be nice for filming and hunting behind for sure. They are neat.
Oh yeah, and plus this year he came out with the XL, so it's designed for guys that like for myself that just are just uncomfortable setting or shooting off the ground. Well, as for bow hunting wise, I can't be that low because even with a 31 axle, it's still kind of it's just like I'm not comfortable shooting that low, and it's like and I want to be able to ethically put out a shot. And then plus if I'm gonna be out the deer hunting, because that's what I'll be primarily using it for, I want to be in a chair because setting on the ground, I get too fidgety, I guess you'd want to say, and I want to have that security around it. And I also have a ghost blind too, which is always fun. I had a 2 seasons ago. I had this little basket 6 get within 7 yards of me, saw the reflection, and he freaked out. He just turned around and just went behind me. And I managed to get him as he's coming back around with my front facing camera and managed to capture him as he's going around. It was a whole like 45-minute thing. It was crazy. One of the most fun interactions I've ever had. And that was the first time I realized that just because a buck snort wheezes at you doesn't mean he won't show up 5 minutes later, 50 yards away.
Really?
Yeah, he showed up 50 yards away. It was so far away. It was getting at dusk, and I'm shooting into the light, turning into no light. It's like I'm not gonna risk it, but I just gotta wait for it to go dark, so this way I can get out.
Yeah, yeah. I've always seen those ghost blinds. I've never tried one before. I was always I've always wanted to see how that worked though. But you use them quite a bit then?
I do. I do mostly ground and pound and such. And then and then if I go on private land, some people will have already tree stands or ground blinds for me to set in. So it's like I'll just kind of pick and choose what equipment I'm bringing. Like last year when I hunted up in northern Wisconsin, the buddy that let me hunt, he already had a ground blind and tree stand. So it's like I didn't have to worry about bringing extra equipment with me except for my harness and such. So it just made life a little bit easier to not have to bring so much gear with me.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what do you have next on the docket for Dakota? Are you going to now? Are you done hunting for this season, and then are you switching to fishing, or are you just going to be going now, focus into deer hunting?
I do a little bit of fishing, but I do a lot of food plots and stuff like that for the deer. So I'm going to start transferring into doing all that and getting ready for deer season, setting up blinds and stands, and just I do a lot of work for that. I usually spend all summer long and early fall getting ready for that. So that's gonna be a pretty busy time.
Sure. And you set yourself up because you're still doing the car detailing business too, plus another side gig, aren't you?
Yeah, I work full time for my dad with construction, and then the evenings I do the detailing. So yeah, it's becoming a pretty busy time of year. And then now I got to start editing the show and everything like that. So yeah, it's starting to get pretty busy and everything, but I enjoy it all, and it all works out.
That is so true, man. I've really enjoyed doing the editing and such. I need to get more discipline and creating more clips out of my podcast episodes, and not sometimes I'm focused. I want to do so much, but it's like in order to do one thing, you gotta put a lot of time into it. But anyways, now, is there anything that we haven't touched base on that you want to talk about?
Um, or we talked, I remember last time about any trade shows, but I for sure am actually going to go to one there. You know, it's the one in Ohio down there by our farm. I for sure confirmed that it'll be, I think it's the first weekend in August, called the Jurassic Classic, and we're going to have our first booth there at that show this year. So we're pretty excited about that.
Oh, congratulations! That will be fun.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited. It'll be different, be a learning experience, I'm sure, but definitely something I'm excited to try out.
For sure. Make sure you bring plenty of merchandise for you too, because if you're going to be there, you might as well try to sell something while you're there.
Yeah.
Now, Dakota, have you thought about since you're becoming more and more familiar with it, what program do you use for editing? Isn't it Adobe for you to do
Yep.
your with you becoming more and more experienced with that program and your camera skills? Have you ever thought about actually booking hunts as a cameraman and then turn around like, well, if you want me to, or you do this instead of having you pay for you to fly out there and all that fun stuff, it's like buy me a tag and I will hunt and I'll film for you. Have you thought about doing something like that just to kind of open up your avenue for getting into access to like a mule deer or elk hunt before get a chance to get drawn?
Yeah. I've done that quite a bit. When I first started, I freelance filming different people and different shows, and they pay me to film them. And then, yeah, last year I would film a friend of mine, Chris Davis, and he has Wild Memories on the Sportsman's Channel. I would film him basically until he would get something, and then in trade out, instead of pay, I would be able to actually hunt, and he would film me in return. So I did that quite a bit there for a couple of years, and I didn't get to do much this fall and this past spring. This was so busy, but that's something I definitely want to get back into, and filming other people, and working out like that, doing different tags and hunts and other ways to make a little money at it too.
Oh, that's awesome! I'm glad you. I didn't know that was something that you did as a side gig for everything like that. Because I have a friend of mine that lives in Indiana, and he was looking for his name's Jeremiah Hale. I can I could tag you in some of his stuff, and he's trying to do a veteran hunt. He tries to do a veteran hunt every year, but it's just trying to find a competent cameraman that also has experience of hunting and stuff like that. I'll tag, since you're so close to Indiana, I'll tag you a couple of things, and you guys can just start talking. And if you guys can come to an agreement, that'd be fantastic. Plus, like giving a memory for a veteran to do that, because he wants to take veterans out to Colorado and get them on elk out there.
Oh, really? Yeah, that'd definitely be interesting doing that. Yeah, and filming that. That would be definitely fun, especially for a veteran like that. That'd be something I'd really be interested in.
Definitely then on top of that too, I know there's the guys out there at the Western Hunt Fest. They're always looking for guy. They want to start giving back to the veteran community too. So if you ever have an opportunity to go, if you ever want to go out to New Mexico and looking for a way to get out there, or New Mexico or Colorado, both of them they live and hunt and all in that tri-state area there. So if you're ever looking for a way to get out there, I can always introduce you to those guys. This way, you just kind of build that relationship. And then you got the Neested Foundation out of Texas, and they're so booked up. They do hunts so often that it won't be hard for you to get them on there to record for a veteran to be able to do that. Because I think that's a really good way to build that social karma to like get you in opportunities you never thought you would be able to get into. My guest last week was with Robert. Oh, I can never pronounce his last name. McLean. He is the CEO of FishFin. He's based out of Dallas and veteran himself, served in the Navy and also in the Air Force. And he was down on his luck and he got into the church and he met a man that believed in his vision, or met a company or a group of people, and they were angel investors, and they started an app called FishFin. And those who are interested in downloading the app, it's pretty interesting in what it all encompasses. And there's also a promo code too. It's BOA pod, all caps lock. You go into the referrals there, and it opens up a lot of different features. You can play around with it. And what I like about the app is that you can actually get in there and create a tournament. And what he uses Stride or Strife. It's a company where, let's say, Dakota, you want to host a tournament, and it's a capture photo release type program there, or tournament. You can run it, and when everybody pays their buy-in or registration fee, all that money goes to there. So this way, it takes the fraudulent idea out of it, and then once the tournament's over with, and whoever has the biggest or the heaviest or the longest, whatever the categories may be, the administrator can now pay that out. And I think that's a really good way of having that type of balance, because this way then you don't have to worry about having cash on you. You can always just pay once you enter in the thing. And I think that's a swell idea that makes the app different. And it runs similar to Instagram, and it's instead of like scrolling up and down, it's swipe left and right. So he kind of got that from Tinder. It's like, hey, I like that idea. It's much different than the scrolling up and down like on TikTok and Facebook and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, that sounds pretty neat and something different for sure. And that's something neat to look. You just start that. How long ago did you start that? Do you know? Or
it's only been around for about a year or so. He's got about 1,500 people. You can book fishing trips there to it too as well. The nice thing is, as a guide, if you put your trip on there, and let's say you and I, let's go down to Texas and go fishing. Well, if we book through this guide, he gets all of the money. Like there's a company called Fish Bookers, and they're a middleman for people, but they take 15 to 30%. He takes nothing. And I think that is what makes it so remarkable, because for you, let's say he decides to build an app regarding around hunting, and you want to start guiding folks as a turkey guide. There you go. It's a good way to get that word of mouth out there. But that's still here nor there, because it's like he still has to focus on one project at a time.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely have to look in that app. And yeah, I like that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and one thing he does that makes him different than FishBrain is that you can actually sell your GPS location. But there is a catch to it, though. You have to be able to prove that you're able to catch fish consistently out of this hole in order to sell it. Otherwise, then it's like you can get excommunicated real fast for selling a bad location. And people don't like when people do bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if you saw some of the videos and pictures I took on my Okoboji trip, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. That
Man,
was awesome.
it was a lot of fun. Like you said, you have as much fun like getting out there and getting people in front of that. I was just hanging out with a large group of guys and just fishing. And the real fun is not on the water. It's once you dock the boat and you start flying all the fish up and hearing everybody's stories, because this group of guys have been getting together for 30 years. like 29 years, and we with the resort we've been going to, they've been going to it for the last 19, 17, 18 years. They've been going to it the last 18 years. But listening to all their stories and the amount of grief they give everybody, it's very cool to see that camaraderie to be able to do all that stuff. And that's just something that I think that makes a good friend group so epic, is being able to get together. They do it twice a year. So this October, I'm going back out there. I take a week off from hunting, and I'll go out there. At least it's during October, not during the rut. So which is even better. So I'll be able to take advantage of some more fish. And it's not about the like specific species. It's that we go out there, we fish for meat, and whatever we don't use to consume ourselves during the trip, they usually host big, I guess you want to say, gatherings about once a week, every Thursday. They do something new and they do something different. Like this week, they're doing I think it's corn dogs, but 20, 30 people show up, and it's just a good way to get out and BS and enjoy the time.
Yeah, that sounds like a blast. That's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah, no, I got a fish fry this Thursday coming up, and I'm inviting all of my work employees. So I got a little pressure on me that I'm going and my wife is going to help me out too, and we're going to fry up some fish and have salad. We're also going to have the fixings for taco salad too, which is going to be just add another element to it. And then yesterday we came up with this idea of using Miracle Whip, sriracha, honey, and this flavor called candied bacon from Spiceology, and it just slaps. The way it works is that when we were tasting it, the heat catches you in the back end, so you actually get to enjoy the entire flavor, and it peaks. It just gets so hot. It only gets so hot, and you're able to enjoy the rest of your whether you could use it for. We're going to be using it for a dip the fish in, and we only did a small amount because we wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. But boy, it just turned out delicious.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll try some of that sometime.
Yeah, I will get you the ingredients. So, well, if there's nothing else left to talk, hey, but also, do you have time to stick around and do a cooking podcast?
Don't matter to me. Or do I have to do anything? Or I don't know any really good cook or recipes or anything, but
Oh, okay. I was just kind of curious because you yourself shot 4 birds this year. I figured you'd have to have had some experience experimenting with different recipes with all the different wild turkey you've shot over the last few years.
I guess yeah, there is something. It's pretty simple, but I do have something for turkeys. Actually, I could talk about that. It's pretty simple, but
perfect. And well, folks, we're gonna end this podcast on this high note here. Our cooking episode will come out on Friday morning, so you guys can watch it there. And hopefully you have a wild bird you want to use his recipe for. But anyways, I want to say thank you for everybody that turned into the episode tonight. And we'll let you go. But before I do, Dakota, what is the best ways to find and follow Legendary TV?
Best ways on Instagram, Legendary TV, Facebook, and we got YouTube as well. And we're also on Carbon TV there, so you can watch some episodes there. But those are the 4, and we're on TikTok now, also Legendary TV also.
I was wondering if you're on TikTok. I haven't seen you come up with my feed yet, so I'm sure I'm going to go find you. But anyways, I want to say thank you for everybody tuning in. Go to the Linktree. You can subscribe to everything. This podcast will be out on Wednesday if you want to listen to it. And